Hey, welcome back. This week I'd like to share a story from when I was studying guitar in university about 15 to 20 years ago. And it's about this Bach Fugue that you may know. Right? And something you may or may not know about that fugue is that there are three different versions of it that we know of that Bach wrote. One was from the lute suites, BWV 1000. One is from the violin sonatas, BWV 1001, and there's another version of it that he wrote for organ, which I believe is BWV 539. And they're all in different keys. The lute suite's in A minor, the violin sonata is in G minor, and the organ version, I believe, is in D minor. And it's not just the keys that are different; they're all kind of subtly different because obviously, a violin doesn't have the same flexibility that an organ does to play a fugue. So a lot of the notes are non-existent on the violin version, or they're replaced. And the violin has this cool kind of, call it like this implicit harmony sometimes, where there's some notes that could be there, but they're more suggested than they actually exist. Anyway, so I was talking with my guitar teacher at the time, and he told me, he asked me if there was any pieces that I might be interested in learning. So I went home and I thought about it, and I like the lute suites and I like the cello suites, but for some reason the violin sonatas have always stuck out to me. I've always loved them. So I went around looking for a version of the violin sonatas, arranged for guitar, and I came to Manuel Barrueco's arrangements. So I ordered his book, and I located a recording of him playing, and instantly just like fell in love with this version in G minor, based on from the violin sonatas. And for me, I was like, well, I'd like to learn this. There's multiple reasons I'd like to learn this version of the fugue from the violin sonata. One is that, again, I mentioned that I just always loved the violin sonatas. So this will give me the option to, learn the full, sonata later, which I prefer to learning, the lute suite with, the other pieces that are in the set with this fugue. While the fugue's similar, the other pieces are quite a bit different. So that was one reason. The other reason was this version from the violin sonata in G minor has this warmth to it that I just love. And I don't know if it's because, this is just a personal thing. This is very, obviously a lot of people might disagree with me, but I've always enjoyed keys and pieces and arrangements that have fewer open strings in them when possible. And I think it's because, for me, open strings have this different kind of sound. And when you start mixing open strings and fretted strings, it gets a little more difficult to make them consistent. And also, when you're holding a note with your left hand, it gives you a little bit more control over how you want to play it. But anyways, that was another reason. The other reason, again, this kind of tied into what I just said, but, being in G minor, it's in a flat key. And, for guitar, we don't get a lot of flat keys. If you've been playing for any length of time, there's plenty of guitar pieces written in flat keys, but, like as a fraction, as a percentage of the guitar repertoire, it's pretty low. So anyway, I brought these violin sonatas, these Barrueco arrangements, to my guitar teacher, and this fugue in particular, and I said, hey, I'd like to learn this version of the fugue. And he kind of looked at me and he was like, why do you want to learn this version? I told him why. I laid out some of the reasons I just said now. And he said, maybe not as clearly. And he was like, this is, he kind of had this attitude like, this isn't the version of the piece you learn. And he happened to have been friends with Manuel Barrueco. And what he told me was, oh, well, Manuel only recorded it, arranged it and recorded it this way in G minor because he's trying to be different. The real version of this piece is the one based on the lute suite in A minor. And, this isn't the arrangement that you want to be playing because the other one's, better. So anyways, at the time, I took his advice and I learned it in A minor. Even though I wasn't as excited about learning that version. And it was fine. And this happened a couple other times too. One year there was a concerto competition, and he asked me, what piece I might be interested in, and I told him I was interested in the Tedesco concerto in D, and he told me, he had this attitude oh, why not the Rodrigo concerto? If you're going to learn the concerto, for a concerto competition, you should learn the Aranjuez concerto by Rodrigo. And for me, I was like, well, it's been recorded and played by, everybody. It's a great piece of music, but I'm not really interested in playing it per se for that reason. I know that, that might be silly to some people, but I feel like I've always had this kind of feeling that if I want to play something, if I'm going to learn something, I want it to be, not quite the standard one. Because at least then I'm putting out something a little bit different into the world. Anyways, looking back at all this now, and this all happened when I was in my early 20s, and I'm in my 40s now. And looking back at it now, I thought my guitar teacher was, I disagreed with him then. And he to be fair, he may have had some good reasons for suggesting I do things the way he was suggesting, because I was majoring in classical guitar performance, and he may have had this idea that oh, you should learn the standard repertoire the standard way, and that was kind of the path we took with a lot of the repertoire that I learned at the time. But I don't think, I kind of disagree with it a little bit fundamentally. Even now that I'm in my 40s and I'm a little more, adult, I don't, looking back then, even though I was majoring in guitar performance, I always kind of knew I didn't want to be a professional classical guitar performer. I just enjoyed playing, and that was the degree that was available. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and eventually I changed my major, and that's a whole nother story, maybe for another video. But for me at the time, from where I was, I think it would have been okay to learn the fugue, the version of the fugue that I want to learn. So, a few weeks ago, I went back and I learned the version of the fugue in G minor, Barwaco's arrangement, and still like it. I still enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I haven't quite, and I will probably never nail it down to a real performance level, because I've mentioned in other videos I have a couple toddlers and I work a full-time job outside of music, so I really only get maybe 2 hours of practice a week if I'm lucky. So that's not really an option for me to really learn pieces perfectly like that, like I used to. But as I've been looking around more now, I see that this Barwaco arrangement has been recorded by quite a few people now. If you go on Google and just type in Bach Fugue Violin Sonata Barwaco, there's plenty of videos and CDs where people have recorded this arrangement of the fugue now. That wasn't the case back then. So maybe if I had been having this discussion, that same discussion with my guitar teacher in 2026, maybe he would have had a different perspective of maybe this is becoming a standard version of the song now, of the piece now. But anyways, now that it's been recorded so much in G minor, and I mentioned, when I learn stuff, I like to do something that's a little different. Really for the sake of being different, because, this has been recorded, plenty of times now by people, I don't have much to add by recording my own version of this same arrangement in G minor and putting it out there, I don't think. So, what I'm planning to do now, what I would like to do, I've learned this piece in A minor, 20 years ago. I've learned it in G minor now. Not perfect, but, it's fine. I have a pretty good grasp of the piece. I'd kind of like to go back and make a third arrangement of it. And I think what I'm going to do is, I don't really totally have this, like hammered out yet, but I'm thinking what I'm going to do is arrange it and maybe, I don't know if D minor is going to work, but I'm thinking maybe E minor. I'm going to keep it based on the violin sonata version and consult the organ, Bach's organ piece, for where I can add some flavor to the arrangement. And I'm hoping to end up with something that is new again, so I can, have some enjoyment learning something and putting something out into the world that hasn't been heard before. And I guess this is what this all gets back to, and the point I'm trying to make here is that I've always had this thing of like, I want to do something different, and I think that's okay. Some people maybe are just happy learning the same arrangements, and and I don't know what drives me to really want to like do everything different, but for some reason I do, and rather than trying to record this G minor version, I think I'm going to try to do that again, and just again now that I've gotten a little bit older and a little bit more mature, I think I've accepted that's it's okay. It's okay for me to go and play music in a way that I'm happy with and that inspires me, and I think everybody else should do that as well. So yeah, you may not always agree with what your teachers tell you, and I believe most of them probably have your best interests at heart. I think my guitar teacher at the time was really like well-intentioned. He was probably like, oh, you're going to be a professional guitar player, you should learn all this repertoire, as I mentioned that before. But maybe he didn't really understand what my goals were and what made me happy, and or maybe it's just agree to disagree. But yeah, anyway, I just wanted to share that story. If you enjoyed it, please like the video. If you want to be notified when I upload another one, please subscribe, and thanks for stopping by.